And welcome back to the Sharon Fitzmaurice podcast. So lovely to join you all here in this beautiful space of sharing inspiring stories and people and celebrating the resilience of our beautiful human spirits. So it's been a few weeks since my last guest, Concepta McNamara, but I am delighted to say that there's lots of little works going on in the background, and myself and Concepta are working on a collaboration which we will be sharing with you all very soon. So I'm excited about that. And there's lots of things going on energetically, and that we feel this change going on for all of us. When I feel that change, I welcome it in because even though it may feel a little bit uncomfortable, I'm getting comfortable in the feeling of being uncomfortable because change is good. We might not see it at the time, but it is actually good. And then we take the steps to follow what we feel is right for us. It's important to take action, to take those steps and not just sitting waiting what's going to happen and being in fear of it. So, yes, I feel this beautiful change going on for us. So, instead of having that fearful thought about change, maybe turn it around in your mind, in your heart, in your body, and welcome it in and create space for these beautiful changes to take place, even if they feel a little bit uncomfortable at this moment. So, I'm going to be introducing you to my wonderful next guest for this episode 74. But in the meantime, to all the people that subscribe on my website to my monthly newsletter, you'll have seen on social media that I'm bringing something very exciting out. So I'm working hard on that as well and trying to get it all okay for you. So my subscribers to my newsletters will be availing of this very, very special initiative that I am creating for you all. And they'll be the first ones to benefit from, the discounts and all of that. And then I'll be sharing it out publicly. So it's going to be a beautiful space, a community of healing and happiness. So more to come on that. But for now, we're going to wait and we're going to introduce you to our next guest. So, welcoming my beautiful guest, Timothy Stuetz, who went from being a certified public accountant to traveling the world as a master teacher of ancient arts and sciences. Already we're intrigued, aren't we, listeners? And there's a lovely quote on your website. Timothy opens himself 100% to your growth, soul, and purpose, serving others for over 35 years. I think that says it all, Timothy. It is just beautiful, opening yourself up 100% to our growth, our soul, and our purpose. What other strengths would you want from a teacher or a guide on this earthly plane? I just thought that was so beautiful. So, Timothy, you are very welcome, as I said, to the podcast. And myself and Timothy were having a little chat just a few moments before we came on to record. And I said, he has so much, you have to look down through his website and just see everything that he offers the world. It is a miracle. He's a walking miracle. That's the only way I can describe him. So tell me about Timothy, starting out as a young person and where you were drawn to or led to, and then how this beautiful change occurred in your life. We always look back to come forward, don't we, really, to see where it all started. So tell us about you, Timothy.
Well, right now, Timothy's got tears in his eyes from that beautiful introduction.
No.
So thank you very, very much. It's wonderful to be with you, Sharon. Wonderful to be on your podcast. And Timothy, Timothy started as a young child growing up in a somewhat dysfunctional family and went to military school for the first 6 years of my life, where everything was focused on academics. And I excelled in academics and was at the top of my class. And then life dealt me a quick change into public schools at seventh grade, where everything was not academically related. It was more sports and social related. So I had to do a lot of learning and catching up, and loved reading as a young child. My mom taught me how to read before I ever started school, and pretty much loved Hardy Boy books, loved anything with a mystery in it and trying to figure things out. And in junior high and high school. I quit reading so much because of all of the schoolwork that you had to read. So I turned to music and started locking myself in my room to just memorize music and get involved with the words of rock music of the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah.
And when I went to college, I loved English in high school and was on the school newspaper. And so I decided I was going to major in microbiology and minor in English. And the only reason I chose microbiology was because one of my grandfathers said, he told all of his grandchildren, if you become a doctor, lawyer, or dentist, I'll pay for your education.
Mm.
Well, my brother took him up on it as an attorney, and I took him up on it going to be a dentist because I did not like doctors, and attorneys just didn't sound good to me. So, but he never paid for any of it.
Ah.
And I switched majors 9 times because microbiology turned out to be something that really didn't interest me. So I eventually decided I was going to be a PE teacher with a minor in business because I saw that a lot of PE teachers taught business in high school. And so that's what I switched to. And the first accounting class I took, I was really good at it. I've always been good at numbers. And the professor said you could make a good living doing this. So I switched my major to accounting, graduated as a accountant, went to work for an international CPA firm, got certified as a certified public accountant, and did that gig for 4 to 5 years in various ways. Um, had my own consulting firm, did seminars across the country. And when that was up, I kind of knew it was up. And I tried to go back into it at one point in time, but God made it very clear that that was not my path in life. When I had a gun put in my chest and my life threatened because of a fraud I had discovered and was
Wow.
disclosing to authorities. So, and somewhere along the line there, as my CPA career wound down, I had a spiritual awakening, so to say.
Mm.
And that really started, I mean, it started gradually, and I didn't even know what was happening. I was on vacation one year in Hawaii and on Maui on a black sand beach at a private luau. And I just felt uncomfortable with the group. So I went out and sat on a rock, and all of a sudden, everything became one. There was no separation between me and the ocean and the air and the cliffs and the sand. And I'd never consciously experienced anything like that I could remember.
Wow.
And that was kind of like an awakening that I didn't even know I was awakening.
That is so beautiful. And as you're saying that, your heart energy is just shining out,
Mm.
through the screen. So even the memory of it is still so strong, even these many years later when you're speaking about it. When you say, and again, it's all right for us that are here working, in the energy awareness and all of that. But when you say an awakening, can you explain to people what you mean by that? Because I've had lots of people ask me, well, what is this awakening, being enlightened? What are you talking about? What does it mean? So in layman terms, what do you or how do you describe an awakening for, especially when you had that background, Timothy? And you felt somewhere inside of yourself that things were changing, and just even taking that step of going to sit outside of the group and sitting on your own and being one with everything, maybe not having, been consciously aware of it before, that moment, and again, as I said, your heart energy, even explaining it, is still
Mm.
pouring it out of you. But for you, what did it feel like? If you didn't know the word awakening, how else would you describe it?
Oh, it's interesting because as I was sitting out there, one of the teenagers that I was traveling with at that point in my life, she came out to find me because I had disappeared. And she looked in my eyes and she said, "Are you drunk?"
Love it.
And I said, yes, but I haven't had anything to drink.
I'm drunk with life, the miracle of life.
Exactly. I don't know what this is, but yes, I'm kind of stoned right now.
Wow. And is that
And
something you'd never experienced even on a minuscule,
well, when you talk about awakening, um, at 4.5, 5 years old in military school, I was in the choir and we had Bible class every Friday. And I loved singing Jesus Loves Me. And I loved singing Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. And every time I sang Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, I literally saw angels. I saw chariots. And I made the mistake of sharing that with some of my school friends out on the play. I mean, I still remember the playground. I remember sitting on the swing when I shared it. And I remember the less than enthusiastic response that I got. And I decided in that moment that it wasn't safe to be me and to share what I was experiencing. So I shut down. Literally, I made a conscious decision to shut down whatever that was. So for me, a reawakening was kind of waking back up to what I already knew as a very young child. And it actually about 9 months, well, sometime after that trip to Hawaii, my daughter was born. And when we picked names for her, we picked the first name Melanie. I was not on a spiritual path at this point in time. I looked up what the name Melanie meant, and it has its roots in melancholy, which is darkness. And when I read that, I immediately said inside of myself, no daughter of mine is going to carry the name of darkness unless it's followed by light. So we picked a middle name, Dawn, and Guru actually means Gu is dark and Ru is light. So I actually named her Guru without even knowing it. And when she was born, when they separated her from her mom, she laid on the table and there was this orangish, red, golden, beautiful energy just pouring out of every cell of her body and rising up through the ceiling. And I was literally amazed. And I said, something far more important than the birth of my daughter's taking place. Again, not knowing what was going on. And then when she was maybe 2 years old, and even before that, when she was 1.5, one time I had had a back pain that had lasted for a long time. And she walked by me and poked a finger right where the source of the pain was. And the pain disappeared. And it's like, what is this? How did you do that? And when she was 2, she was riding in the back seat of the car and started to literally describe in detail where we were going. And my conscious mind said, this is not possible because she's never been there. So I literally just started rerunning the memory banks and realized the only time she had been there was in the womb.
Wow.
So that got me contemplating, when do we become conscious? When are we aware of our outer world? And then shortly after all of this was transpiring, I took some pain medication for a minor operation, took some Valium, and that night I took some pain medication before going to sleep. And immediately upon falling asleep, I had a dream of driving in the mountains around a curve with a passenger saying, I can't control it any longer. And the next thing I know, my eyes are wide open. I'm looking up at the ceiling. There's light coming out of my eyes, projecting a picture on the ceiling, just like an old-fashioned movie camera. And I watched him carry our bodies away. And I closed my eyes, went back to sleep. Next night, I took another pain pill before bed and had a dream, which I don't remember, but this time I opened my eyes, and coming in and out of the wall across from me was a bearded man with an orange stocking cap on, and he just kept coming in and out of the wall towards me. So I closed my eyes, and I remember saying, I'm a certified public accountant. This does not make sense. No more, no more pain pills. Whatever's happening wasn't comfortable for me. And it was 9 months later that I laid in bed crying for 3 days because my whole life had fallen apart. My marriage, jobs were changing, losing a house. So lots of things were happening. I'm going to pause a minute. It is,
So, Timothy, with everything falling apart in your life, everything changing, you've had these reawakenings, your daughter being born, seeing people coming in and out of the walls, and you're an accountant, it doesn't make sense in your logical mind. What do you do?
you lay in bed crying for 3 days and not eating or drinking. And at the end of the 3 days, I just yelled out, God, if you exist, I need to find you. I've prayed, now I lay me down to sleep ever since my mother taught me. And if you really exist, I need to find you.
Mm.
And shortly after that, I got the inspiration to get out of bed, stood in front of the mirror, and felt Christ standing behind me saying, I will remake you in my image.
Mm.
And then remembered the prior year when I left Hawaii, one of the mortgage the lady that ran the escrow company that I was there auditing, she pulled me aside before I left and said, if you ever need a couch to crash on, just give me a call. And I needed a couch to crash on. I needed to get my head together. So I gave her a call, and I was in Hawaii within a couple of weeks. And she had bought a house, so I got my own bedroom. I didn't even have to sleep on a couch. And she gave me a book by Dick Sutphin and said, hey, I'm working tomorrow, so why don't you read this book? And it was called Past Lives, Future Loves. I'd never heard of past lives. Again, this was all brand new to me. And I sat out in the backyard the next day and just started crying as I read certain passages, things like my daughter being able to describe where she had been and poking a finger and the dreams and that experience on the beach in Hawaii. It all just started to come together and make sense.
Mm.
So from that point on, I could not read enough. And eventually, at the end of, I was putting on one of those seminars at that point in time and organizing everything, and had to stay awake for 48 straight hours towards the end of it. And I was so tired when it was over. I laid down next to somebody and spontaneously left my body. And that had never happened to me before, but I really realized I was over in the doorway looking back at my body sleeping there, watching the person with me freak out because she thought I was dead. And
Mm.
so, and between that and me being freaked out, I just somehow got right back in my body and got on the phone immediately and called up a psychologist I'd seen every once in a while and basically said, help. And she said, well, this is like at 10 o'clock at night. And she said, I'll get up and ask Baba what to do. And I didn't know she was on a meditation path. I'd never heard her mention anybody named Baba. And she called me back in 15 minutes and said, Baba says to eat something sweet. It'll calm the energies down and go to bed. And then she called me at 5 o'clock the next morning, 4:30 or something, and asked me if I wanted to go chant with her.
Mm.
And I asked her what chanting was, and when she told me, I said, no, I don't sing for anybody. I don't sing in the shower. I don't want to go chant. But I asked her if she'd meet me afterwards for breakfast, and she did. And she brought me a book by Ram Dass, and she gave me the name of an astrologer, and she gave me the name of a Hatha yoga teacher.
Mm.
So I enrolled in Hatha yoga classes. I read that book by Ram Dass, and the one line in that book at the end of one of the chapters was listen to your own truth.
Mm.
And those words rang deep within me, even though I didn't know what they meant.
Mm.
And I wrote Ram Dass and asked him if I could use them as a title in a book one day, and he said yes. And I made an appointment with the astrologer, and that was a whole new experience for me. And he was able to see certain things in my chart that I had never known. And he said, there's three things you never do in life. You never fly an airplane, you never drive motorcycles, and you do not get behind the wheel of a fast boat.
Mm.
And he saw that I like to take risks, which I did, but I had never identified it before. And the other thing that he shared with me in that first meeting as it ended was he suggested that I go to sleep each night by breathing in white light up through the soles of my feet and up through my body and out the palms of my hand and surrounding myself in a cocoon of light and going to sleep that way. And he could tell by looking in my eyes that I had no idea what he meant by visualizing light going through my body. So he says, have you ever watched Star Trek? And I said, yes. And he says, well, when they beam people up, he says, that's what I want you to do. Put those particles of light through your body. And I did that every night for 10 nights. And I was taken into other dimensions. I was shown things that had happened in the past and why they happened, and was brought forward into the future and shown things.
Mm.
And the Hatha Yoga class was, that showed me that even though I was very athletic, so I thought I had a really strong body, and I jogged 55 miles a week and rode bicycles for a couple hours at a time and swam. And about the fourth week in the Hatha Yoga class, at the end, I bent over in a forward bend and I couldn't get up. And my back cracked, and ended up seeing a chiropractor who basically told me I had the neck of a 70-some-year-old person. This was in my early 30s.
Wow.
So I had no idea of the tension that I'd carried in my body all those years and that had built up.
Mm.
So, um, yeah, I continued taking Hatha Yoga and went to a meditation, got involved with meditating because the Hatha Yoga teacher also followed Siddha Yoga, Swami Muktananda. And so after about 3 months of doing Hatha Yoga and the teacher played Om Namah Shivaya at the end of each class, I called up my psychologist friend and said, I'll go do that chant with you, whatever it is. And so one Saturday morning, I ended up going into this reconverted garage that had really thick carpeting on it, and watched people come in with men sitting on one side, women sitting on the other, and they gave me a book to follow along in the chant, which I could not do at all.
Mm.
It's totally foreign to me, and it was an hour-long chant.
Wow.
And I felt I was messing up everybody's morning, with me trying to fumble through the words. And but at the end of the chant, there was so much energy vibrating up my spine that I started to lift off the floor. So I grabbed into the thick carpet with my fingers just to hold on, and walked out of there and looked at my friend, and she said, well, how was that? And I said, I feel like I'm a kindergartner that just participated in a 12th grade class,
Oh.
and didn't want to go anywhere near that place for 3 months either after that. And when I did go back, it was mostly out of curiosity. It's
Mm.
like I wanted to know what this was, and how just chanting, and how somebody I've never met sitting in India could facilitate this
Mm.
from such a distance.
Mm.
So that was my introduction into meditation. And I started meditating. I was a busy person, so I started with 2.5 minutes a day. I set a kitchen timer. I didn't want to go over. And after about a week, I took it up to 5 minutes and then doubled to 10 minutes, and was feeling better and more relaxed. So I went to 20 minutes and then half hour twice a day, then 1 hour once a day. And I've been meditating every day since. So it's been over 40 years.
Wow.
And subsequent to that, I discovered Reiki and Tai Chi and Qigong. And yes, it's been an amazing path of waking back up to the reality that we are more than these physical bodies, much, much, much more.
I love that. And I love the fact that you said waking back up, Because I think when people think about awakening, that it's something that's outside of themselves, and I believe it's something we already are, but we have forgotten through societal beliefs and patterns no more than you're growing up, in a dysfunctional family and going to military, being sent down the academic route, all of that. It's waking back up to who we are. But again, it's a choice or a step that you take, Timothy, isn't it? And even I love you saying I was curious, so I went back to the chanting class because that's what I feel. We have to be curious about life. Even if we don't understand it or it doesn't make sense there and then, if it feels like, I don't know why I'm being drawn to that, but I'm going to give it a go anyway, just to see. And I may not come back to it straight away, but maybe in a few months or a few years, something will draw me back to it. So I love the fact that you followed that intuition, that draw, even if you didn't know it was your truth at the time. And that is beautiful, listening to your own truth. I don't think you knew what your truth was.
No, no, I had no idea,
No.
really. And as you were saying that, there's a fine line between being curious and going for something. Like as a Tai Chi teacher, I watched so many of my students stop taking the class after 2 to 3 weeks
Mm,
because the movements were so slow.
mm,
And in America, people weren't used to moving slow. So it feels so foreign to them
mm,
that they drop out without giving it a chance.
mm,
So it's like we have to stay with something long enough to find out whether it really is good for us. Because discrimination is also important because there's a lot of pathways that look valid
mhm.
on the surface,
Yes,
but getting down deep into them, you can find out otherwise.
absolutely.
So yeah, there's a fine balance there, and if I had given up on things because the experiences were unusual, I would have never continued meditating.
Mm,
I would have never continued the yoga because I got hurt really bad doing
mm,
it. And even when I started taking Tai Chi, I got really sick after every class that I took. And it was because I was changing my diet at the time. And the person I was seeing had put me on, she basically took me off of everything that I was used to eating and had me making these very strange, horrible tasting juice combinations. And after about 3 weeks of getting sick after every Tai Chi class, I just asked my body, I said, what is going on here? And what I heard was, if you put one more of those terrible tasting juices into me, you're just going to keep getting the same results. So
mm. Absolutely. So
after,
listening to your body as well, isn't it?
yeah, so I learned that, yeah, healthy things are great for you, but they have to taste good
Yes.
to be really healthy for you.
You have to enjoy them, I think, as well, don't you?
Yes.
It's interesting, Timothy, that you said, and I think that's still something in our society nowadays, is when something is slow or you're not getting results immediately, that people tend to go, all right, that's not working for me. I'm going to leave and do something else because they want immediate results. They want to, like, I teach meditation and mindfulness. And I have, sometimes I have students going, well, I can't see anything, so it doesn't work for me. And I said, well, not everybody visualizes. Some people feel it in a deep physical
Hmm.
sense or a knowing. It's not always about the visualizations, but there's the comparing, looking at somebody across the room that's coming with the most beautiful visualizations. And of course, I'm looking at them going, oh my God, I can picture that myself. And then the person sitting is going, I'm fed up. I'm not coming back here again. I see nothing. So we all experience the world in a different way. And we're not always going to have the same results as everybody else or see or feel things the way everybody else does. And that's the part of acceptance, I think, that you're speaking about, Timothy, is that through everything that you did with this waking up or reawakening, it was your experiencing it and it wasn't all pleasant and joy and feeling fabulous. There was a lot of physical stuff going on. There was a lot of, oh God, I'm not going back to that, whatever it is. But you continue doing things to explore yourself, explore what was available to you. And that's why I love everything that when I'm looking down through everything that you've done in your life, where you started, and that's the lovely thing. When people hear, they sometimes look and they go, oh my God, they know it all. They must have been spiritual all of their lives to do all of this work. And for many of us, we weren't. We didn't know, or we weren't aware, but we've discovered what works for us, what has helped us. And when we know what it is and how good it feels, even if there is the tricky parts in the middle start, but that we know we can help others as well to reawaken those beautiful gifts and that light within us all. Because you've named out a few of the things that you've tried, but if we look, you're a master of meditation and quantum energy practices. I love that title, including Reiki, Tai Chi, Qigong, and yoga. A certified medical intuitive and quantum clairvoyant, a soul harmonic sound healer and sacred essential oil alchemist, an ordained science of mind and holistic healing minister, an Indian head and foot massage practitioner. Now, there are only some of the things on the list that you are or that you work at, which is amazing. When one thing leads you to the next, is there a calling within you, or is it out of the curiosity that you go and find the next thing? What is it, Timothy, for you?
Um, what led me to Reiki was my body almost dying
Mm,
and knowing I needed some sort of physical work, which turned out to be I'd never had a massage and
mm,
God wasn't going to let me have one. It's like people lost their appointment books. People didn't call me back. I finally got an appointment at one place, arrived 10 minutes early, not to be late,
yes.
sat in the car waiting and watched somebody else walk up to the door. And so I decided it's time to go up there. And, he had double booked me with somebody else. And since she arrived earlier, she got the massage.
Ah,
And there was this conspiracy going on that I was not to get a massage. And it was literally because it was to lead me to Reiki.
mm,
And a group of guys I had breakfast with every Thursday, one of the guys said his wife took a Reiki class over the weekend, and she happened to be my yoga teacher. So I called her up and she said she wanted somebody to practice on, and I definitely knew I needed something. And two things in that first treatment where I got so relaxed when it was over, I said, I want to die like this.
mm,
And I've been blessed to assist about a dozen people in that process when they've left. And it also showed me that as a child, when things didn't go the way that I thought they should go, um, I said, I want to die. So
yeah.
my subconscious picked that up, and every time things didn't go the way that my subconscious and whatever part of me thought they shouldn't go for the rest of my life, there's
Mm,
this tape playing. I want to die. I want to die. I want to die. And eventually my body just said, okay,
here you go.
yep, we're shutting down. So it was just that conscious realization that opened things back up, and it was such a powerful experience. And again, I was starting to write children's stories at that point in
Mm,
time and looking for other ways to be in the world. So I decided I wanted to pursue Reiki and teach Reiki. And as I was training to be a Reiki master, the husband of Phyllis Furumoto, who was the head of that lineage at the time, he was doing some Gestalt therapy training to get his PhD. And at that time, ecstasy was legal for psychologists and psychiatrists to use. So when I went for my training, he was all into ecstasy at the time and talking about it and how psychologists were using it to help people break through 20 to 30 years of repressed feelings. And at that point in time, I felt like there was a veil between me and the entire world.
mm,
So I asked him if I could try this, and there was about a week delay, and I meditated that on that every day. It's like, what am I doing?
mm,
But the experience turned out to be quite an experience. I actually got to experience every part of my body as a separate unit.
Mm.
So I got to experience each toe as just a toe, feeling nothing else, and my whole body like that. And also, as part of that experience, I started doing some spontaneous Tai Chi and heard to take a Tai Chi class,
Mm.
which I did not pay attention to. And 3 or 4 months later at a spiritual retreat, my legs blew up from my knees to my toes. I could barely walk, and they were just balloons. I was doing some dietary changes at the time, and so movement became very important. As soon as I got back back home, I picked up the phone and got a magazine from a health food store and found a Tai Chi teacher and took a Tai Chi class. And that was more powerful to me and moved the energy that I could feel stronger than yoga did.
Mm.
So again, I was still putting together different ways of being in the world and to assist people. So I trained to be a Tai Chi teacher and then learned multiple forms of Tai Chi only because one of my students said, "Is this all there is?"
Yeah, I want more.
Is this one form you're teaching it? And I said, well, this is what I've been told, and I don't need anything else. But that got me prompted, and I started looking into other methods. And so
Mm.
everything has just kind of appeared to me
At the
when
right
I've needed
time.
it. Yes,
Yeah,
and I've had to stop learning things at one point because you have to practice them to really
yeah.
learn them and to share them. And there's just not enough time in the day to do that.
No, and my God, you have a lot. Something I love that you said about the Reiki as well, because I'm a Reiki master as well and teacher. And when you were talking, I still, it comes into my heart. I feel that love, of my first encounter of a Reiki
Mm,
experience. And it was the only way I can describe it is coming home to myself.
ah,
I just, and even as you were talking, when I say it, I feel it so deeply in my body. And then when I try to explain that to people afterwards, and if they hadn't had that experience, even if they've had Reiki before, they were looking at me going, well, that's just you, Sharon. You feel everything very deeply and emotionally in every kind of way. And I was going, yes, but it's connecting with that energy, connecting with something that, again, like you, Timothy, that I felt drawn to, not knowing why or what it really was, but that my physical body needed to experience it to be able to relax at that deeper level
mm,
so that my soul could open up and my heart, everything, my mind,
mm,
everything was just so beautiful in that moment. And I just wanted it. And a little bit like you, I felt like I just want to stay here. I don't want to go back out into the world and have to go through the hardship of, dealing with my own shit and trauma and healing and everything. But I knew it gave me strength and that I would be able to continue on. But now I had something more, and that was Reiki. And so that was my first experience receiving it. So I was
mm.
so excited, Timothy, to learn it so that I could share it with others. But first, I had to do my own inner work, which is really important. But I just love that. I love that feeling, but also the conscious awareness of, like you saying, that trauma or those patterns that run in the subconscious mind, we suddenly become consciously aware of the root of many of our triggers and patterns now as adults in our life. And that, again, energy work, all energy work, but Reiki for me was that coming home to myself, which was so powerful. And like you, it's somewhere that I just feel such gratitude and appreciation for recognizing myself, but not on the physical level just, but me
Right.
in here. And when you try to explain that, and I'm very passionate about things also, like you, I just think people don't get it, but they don't have to get it until they experience it themselves. But I believe for me, it's about never stop sharing those beautiful experiences with people. Never stop giving them hope that there are other things out there. And you have so many beautiful gifts, skills, and
Mm,
talents that you share. And one of the things that I loved, and again, all of the things that you do, and you spoke about it a few moments ago, that you've created, these beautiful fairy tales of the heart. I love that. I just love
mm.
it. I love it, love it, love it. And many of them have been published by Balboa Press. And the inspiration arose from your daughter, your mom, your friends, your family, your teachers, and other loved ones, which are always our biggest inspirations. And the fairy tales and programs are enriched through having held children and others at birth and death, coaching people of all ages through a variety of life's most challenging circumstances. That is just so beautiful. Tell me about that first fairy tale of the heart that you created.
Well, the fairy tales of the heart arose because I followed my heart when I woke up one morning and the first words out of my mouth to my partner were, if Hershey's can make chocolate kisses, I can make chocolate French kisses.
Ah, I love it.
And so between all this CPA stuff and the healing work, I actually ended up opening up a chocolate shop and manufacturing different molded chocolates and had these French kisses made. And it was actually in that chocolate shop one day that I got a large box delivered to me, and I didn't order it. And the UPS driver would not take it back because it had my address on it. So
Mm.
I opened up the box and there's 50 little teddy bears staring at me.
Oh.
And loving Hardy Boy books as a child and being a certified public accountant, I had to find out who owned those bears, and I did discover that. And like the gun pointed at my chest, I discovered they had been brought into the country illegally, that one of their reps was trying to siphon off some of their product for himself. So it's like anytime I get involved with something, it's like people really need to be on their game, because it's like the energy is so strong and God's light is so strong, it starts to show where
Mm.
defects are. I didn't know that at that time. And anyway, I carried one of these little bears with me in my car. And after about 2 weeks of doing this, I picked him up at the stop sign one time and looked in his eyes and said, "Who are you?" And I heard back, "My name's Poet Bear."
Oh.
And I wrote love poetry, I wrote philosophical poetry, so I got the idea of putting my poetry in a little book along with some inspirational quotes of Christ and other
Mm.
thought leaders, and packaged it with this little teddy bear and called it Tales of the Heart. And when I got it all together and put it on the counter of the candy shop to sell, my mom took one look at it and she said, "You blew it. That should have been a children's story."
Oh.
And I said, "Yes, Mom, but there's not one line in there for children or about children.
Mm.
This is all love poetry and philosophy and societal stuff." And but my mom knew me, and she knew me very well. And 6 months later, the idea for the first story came to mind, and Poet Bear became Blissberry Bear, who comes from the Great Bear constellation in a blue pearl starship to help children and families look at things from a different perspective. And I never intended to write one story, but when it showed up, I just wrote it down, and then they never stopped. So we're now 88 stories later.
Wow. That is amazing. Wow. That is amazing, Timothy.
Uh,
They just sound so beautiful. And you then, when you're talking about, helping people, you've also designed and taught human development, movement, and health education in nursing homes, churches, retreats, and other corporations, government facilities, and private settings around the world. And one of them was Cirque du Soleil. Hello, I want to be in Cirque du Soleil.
oh, I loved Cirque du Soleil. I mean, watching what
Mm.
those people can do with their bodies is just amazing. But yes, I was asked to teach a Tai Chi class to the performers, and the one thing that amazed me was with the control they had of their bodies.
Mm.
They had just as much difficulty learning the Tai Chi movements as anybody else.
Wow, why was that?
They're new. I mean, they picked them up relatively quickly,
Mm.
but Tai Chi is a lot different than circus performing
Yes.
and doing different acts. So again, you have to shift your weight a certain way and move slowly and coordinate your arms. And they picked that up pretty fast. But again, there was a learning curve for them.
Mm.
And even after 16 weeks of doing it with them, you know, not one of them was really moving fluidly like you would expect
Yes.
A Cirque du Soleil
You
performer
think
to
they just
do.
float on air as they move?
Exactly. No, they go through the same thing we all go through when we're learning something new. So
Mm.
that's another reason not to give up when something feels uncomfortable, because it feels uncomfortable for all of us when we're learning something new.
I love that. I just had that was kind of what I said at the very start. Sometimes we can get comfortable being uncomfortable because we know there's a change or something going on. We may not like it, but it is something that we're creating space for, that we can't stay the same. And even through your lifetime, seeing all of the reawakening and all of the journeys you had through your life, even doing these beautiful things, how difficult it was and how your body was adapting to this change, and energetically what was going on, consciously being more aware of yourself, your body, your surroundings, that things don't always feel nice and lovely like you think they do because you're meditating or doing Tai Chi or Reiki. Some people come and they go, "Oh my God, that was the worst experience of my life." And you ask them why, because I didn't like the way it felt, because we expect, it's our expectations, isn't it, Timothy? But because it's certain, this is because of meditation or Tai Chi or Reiki or whatever it is, that it should be all blissful and fabulous. And that's not always the case, is it?
No, because we're readjusting and reharmonizing all aspects of us back to our original nature. So everything that is not in harmony literally has to fall back in place.
Yes.
And for many years I told people, if somebody had told me ahead of time what I would have to lose, give up, and change in my life once I started following a spiritual path,
Mm.
I would have said no,
Yeah, me too.
because because I did not have the experiential basis. Even if they had explained to me, "Oh, well, you're going to feel blissful and you're going to feel that." Well, I didn't have that experience. So no matter how much somebody tells you what chocolate tastes
Mm.
like, until you taste chocolate,
And love
you,
it.
you don't know. So
Yes.
I would have said no.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, um, everything that's written out there that is true about what we are capable of experiencing in these human bodies is amazing, and it's worth devoting some time
Mm.
to reconnect with that and make that reconnection last longer and longer and longer and longer throughout the day, so that
Mm.
eventually we don't have to think about anything. Whatever we need to know will come to us.
Mm.
So, like these stories, the ideas come to me because my mind is clear.
Mm.
My mind pretty much thinks when I want it to think and what I want it to think. And other than that, it's quiet. So ideas for stories pop into my head. And I love every story that I've written. And when I go back and read the ones that I wrote at the beginning, I say, like, who wrote that? It's like,
Wow.
where did that come from?
Yes.
And I still feel that way with every story that I write. 2 years ago, I'd never really written in poetry that rhymed. And all of a sudden, every story I wrote started coming out with rhyming poetry throughout the whole story.
So really,
So,
it's creating space for ourselves. Like I
yes,
said at the start, it's creating the space for other things to flow, other opportunities, other people, other experiences. And I think that's a lot of people nowadays. They don't feel like they have any space or time for themselves in the busy world. What would your one piece of advice? I know that's a lot to ask because you do so much and such beautiful work. But if there was one thing, just somebody starting out on their reawakening journey, where they're a little bit curious, maybe a little bit fearful, they're not sure where to start, they're kind of afraid of expressing it to their family or friends because they're just not there, and they don't know where to look or who to contact, because sometimes people feel like they're silly, going, I don't know who I am, I don't know what I feel, it's all very strange, I don't want to sit in a rock in Hawaii and feel as one with everyone and everyone thinks I'm drunk. So, what would your one piece of advice be to somebody that's listening today, Timothy, and they're at that place where they know there's something more within them and they just want to feel something and they're not sure what that something is? What would your one piece of advice to them be?
Oh, get out in nature,
Mm-hmm.
immerse yourself in nature, look into a baby's eyes,
Oh, yeah.
um, reconnect that way. Take time, once once every couple hours, just bring your hands to your heart, connect in with your heart and breathe
Mm-hmm.
and listen and feel. When you're walking, I mean, yes, you can start meditating. And again, I started at 2.5 minutes. You don't have to start with a lot. And as busy as people are in their lives, if we just learn to control our mind and not get caught up in the thoughts, and the easiest way to do that is to pick a mantra, a word, a high vibrational word, whether it's God, Christ, Buddha, Krishna, Om Namah Shivaya, whatever it is, and just repeat it over and over and over as you go about the day. As you're walking, focus on your feet hitting the floor. Don't think about what you're going to do when you get to the next room. That, and take 3 or 4 minutes between every activity and pause. Again, bring your hands to your heart and just breathe and appreciate what you just finished before you move to something else. So those are all just little tricks that we can use throughout the day to reconnect with our essence. And as you go to bed at night, do what that astrologer told me. Breathe light into your body and go to sleep that way. And when you get up in the morning, breathe sunshine into your body as you wake up and send blessings to people. And
I love that. I've just put that up in one of my reels the other day on Instagram about welcoming in the day, even the
uh,
gray clouds, welcome in the day, welcome in the new opportunity and the new energy every day. And just like you stretch in the morning, but instead of going, oh, Jesus, here's another day, what's it going to bring? Be ready to accept in the beautiful things in life, and even if you don't believe it
yes.
straight away, but that believe you deserve all of the love and the beautiful energy and the opportunities and the people, the same as everybody does. Because we hear that a lot. How come they get everything nice and we get all the bad stuff? And I'm going, well, because sometimes we're expecting all the bad stuff, and when we don't know any better, it continues to happen because that's the energy in the program going on. But you deserve, and I deserve, and we all deserve the most beautiful love and light and attention that's all beautiful for ourselves so that we can share it. It's always for me sharing with others. And that's why I feel so grateful, Timothy, to have you as my guest today and for
Mm.
sharing your inspiration. And as you were speaking at the end and about, connecting with our heart, I call it checking in with yourself, the same way you check in with your
Hmm.
friend or family member. How are you today?
Yes.
Are you okay? Do that for yourself. We forget about ourselves and we're thinking about everybody else. But you have, again, I urge my listeners to go on to Timothy's website and look down through his beautiful body of work and what he has accomplished and achieved in his own life by reawakening to that beautiful soul light that he has and that he is and that he's shining every day. Go and check out his kids' Fairy Tales of the Heart books. Check out all that he does, and you can connect with him on Instagram or on Facebook or on YouTube and just find what resonates with you, where you feel drawn to, and contact Timothy. Let him know you have a question. If you're not sure where to start, just say that. Be real and say, I like it, but I don't know what it is. How can it help
Ex
me?
exactly. Let's have a conversation and see if there's anything here that works for you.
I love it. Timothy, the hour
Uh,
is up and I cannot believe it because, again, I was so absolutely absorbed in your words and in your
mm,
energy, which is just so beautiful. There is a simplicity, and I don't mean that in a patronizing way, but there is a simplicity about you that goes beyond words. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
It totally makes sense.
Because even in
I
everything that you do, it's like you make it simple for people to understand. You don't complicate it, and it doesn't need to be, as my mother would say, highfalutin. It's just a very simple way of explaining where you are, how you got to be on your journey, and it wasn't all beautiful and connected with the divine. Sometimes it was your body was crying out to stop, or
Oh, yes. Many emotional and physical highs and lows, but what has pulled me through all of it was repeating the mantras that I use.
mm,
So even when I've had in the past 6 or 7 years, there's been 2 nights that I've been in more pain than I could literally tolerate
mm,
and literally wanted to die.
yes, yeah,
But I just kept repeating my mantra, staying focused on God.
mm,
And by the time I woke up in the morning, everything was gone.
amazing. And may I
And
ask you a question? Because
uh-huh.
I know some people will say when we talk about God or Buddha or anything that they are kind of maybe religious terms. What do you, or how do you describe what God is to you?
um, God is whatever miracle, energy, love, vibration that is sustaining everything simultaneously before us, which is just so magical and so miraculous to us, to
Mm,
me. Um, I mean, you can't define something that is everything and nothing simultaneously,
yes, yes.
but we can connect with it. We can be that. That's what all of the masters have shown us ahead of time, is that that's who we are. And
Mm,
we just really need to focus on that as we go about our lives more than anything, and realize that we have all of the capabilities, all of the powers to live life with a peaceful mind, a body that's vibrating like 1,000 suns, and relationships that work,
yes,
and living in ecstasy.
beautiful, Timothy. Well, the
Uh,
light in me honors the light in you because you surely
mm,
have a most beautiful light and you're speaking from your heart always, through this, which I just love. So thank you so much for sharing with me and all my listeners. And I know that so some they may be listening and going, I haven't a clue what any of that is about. You don't have to. You don't have to know what. I wake up in most mornings and a lot of my clients and my groups will laugh because I'll say, I wake up, saying I know nothing. Everything I ever knew, that's gone because today there's something else new to learn. And everything I believed to be true yesterday and the day before may not be true for me today. So don't get stuck on believing everything you've learned up to this point is the truth, because our truth is always opening up to us. And that's for me when we speak about God or source or light, is that listening to your truth that Timothy has spoke about. Your truth is what comes from within you, what you feel, that divine light that you are also, that grows within you. And the more that you connect to your truth, the more it grows and expands and becomes who you are in this moment. Don't worry about 5 or 10 years time, because the more we listen to that truth right now, that's creating who we're going to be for tomorrow. And then the more truth we listen to the next day and the next day, and it continues to be that way until we change something else. So never just say,
uh,
this is it. It's not it. There's no it. This is who we are today. And I love that because Timothy has explained it so beautifully and where he started from, where he was in that reawakening journey, where he is at the moment, and where he's going to be next. Well, sometimes we don't know that. Sometimes we're just opening the door and waiting, not even waiting, but just allowing for that beautiful energy to come in and greet us and say, here you are, Timothy. Here you are, Sharon. Come with me. and we go on another magical journey.
Exactly. I'm actually sitting in that place right now.
I love that. I love it.
Uh,
Timothy, again, I thank you. I could talk to you forever, but I want to
oh,
thank you for coming on and sharing with us all. So people can check your website, timothystuetz.com. You're on Facebook, and I'll put all the links on my show notes. And again, when I'm sharing this on social media, I will tag Timothy so you can connect with him on his socials and YouTube. Or just as I said, please have a look at his beautiful website and just connect to him. Just even feel the energy from his website page is just amazing. I just sit there and just read it and just feel it. It's fabulous. It's a healing in itself.
oh, thank you, Sharon. It's been wonderful to be here with you and all the listeners and feeling your inspiration and the love flowing from you. It's
Oh,
beautiful.
oh,
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
thank you so much, Timothy. So thank you to everyone that has listened, and I look forward to connecting to you all again soon.